Hi everyone, Calum here. Hope you're all excited about today's sorry, I think I've got a frog in my throat. Anyway, I hope you're excited about today's episode because we're going to be learning about herpetology! Better known to you and me as the study of reptiles and amphibians. Now, that's not maybe the best way of thinking about it because technically birds are reptiles, but they don't study them in herpetology. No, a better way of thinking about this is herpetology is the study of ectothermic tetrapods. That's cold-blooded creatures with 4 legs. Now, you might think because there's a whole branch of science dedicated to the study of reptiles and amphibians that they're probably closely related. But in actual fact, they're not closely related. They just kind of look the same. In actual fact, reptiles like snakes, for instance, are more closely related to you. Yes, you are more closely related to a snake than any snake, crocodile, turtle, or any other reptile is to an amphibian. They just kind of look similar. Now, just to complicate things as well, in the reptile family, things get a bit weirder. So let's take a crocodile, for example. A crocodile's closest living relative, other than other crocodilians, isn't a snake, it's not a lizard, it's not a tuatara, it's not a turtle, it's a bird. Yep. Birds and crocodiles are very closely related. Weird. I know. Anyway, let's have a look at the amphibians to begin with. Amphibians can be divided into 3 living groups. We have the frogs and toads, the newts and salamanders, both of which you're likely to see here in Scotland. We also have the Sicilians, not to be confused with Sicilians, who are people from Sicily. No. You're unlikely to see any Sicilians in Scotland, and even if you did, you might not even think it was an amphibian. So they look kind of like worms, so not like newts or frogs and toads. They live underground, and they're found typically in rainforest areas around the world. Now, a really cute thing about this group of amphibians is they look after their babies. Oh, isn't that adorable? They feed them. Oh, so cute. What do they feed them, I hear you ask? They feed them their own skin. Yep. Pretty horrible. But anyway, we don't find these in Scotland. Amphibians and reptiles are what we call ectotherms. This means they can't control their body temperature internally like we do. Now, you might have guessed already, but Scotland's rubbish weather and cool climate presents an obvious challenge for these groups of creatures. Reptiles get around this by lying in the sun, soaking up the heat until they're hot enough to run about and capture their prey. Unfortunately, amphibians cannot do this. If you leave a frog sitting in the sun, it will turn into a crispy frog pancake. Not very good. So amphibians cope in cooler environments by living at a much more leisurely pace. Amphibians and reptiles also differ in other ways. For example, amphibians are equally at home in the water or on land. Frogs, toads and newts have soft water-permeable skin, which allows them to breathe underwater through their skin. But it also means that when they're on land, they have to stay damp. So you typically find them in wet grassland or under logs and leaf litter. Amphibians also need water to breed in. Eggs are laid in spawn, like this, in the early spring, and swimming tadpoles soon emerge. Once their legs have grown and their tails shrunk, in the case of frogs and toads, they hop out the pond and onto land where they spend most of their life before they come back for breeding. Newts have a similar life cycle, but lay eggs which are individually stuck to plants. The young also look slightly different. They look like mini newts but have frilly gills that help them to absorb oxygen from the water during their tadpole stage. In Scotland, we have 6 native amphibian species. We have the common frog. You can see some just here in my dad's pond, hopping about with spawn and tadpoles and stuff. We've got the common toad. We've also got the natterjack toad, which is slightly rarer. And we've got 3 species of newt. The great crested newt, the palmate newt, and the smooth newt, which I used to love catching as a kid. Now, these are all amazing creatures, but let's find out a little bit more about the reptiles we can find here in Scotland. In Scotland, we have 3 native species of reptile. Reptiles have dry, scaly skin, which prevents them drying out in the sun, which, if you remember, is a problem for amphibians if they try and heat up. And they also don't need to return to water to breed, like amphibians. However, breeding is a bit of a challenge for reptiles in Scotland. And that's because it's just not warm enough. If they lay their eggs on the ground, they run the risk of them being frozen. So all 3 native Scottish reptiles keep their eggs inside their bodies and give birth to live young. How cool is that? Amazing! Now, out of those 3 common ones, my favourite is probably this guy, the adder. So adders can get to be about 80 centimetres long. Fun fact for you, you can only measure snakes in metres or centimetres, and that's because they don't have any feet. Now, the adder isn't only our only native snake, it's also the only venomous reptile in the UK. They spend most of their time sitting about the place waiting for something to come past them, and when it does, they jump out, bite it, inject venom, kill it, and eat it. Now, this isn't very good if you're a mouse or a tiny little lizard. However, for people, it's probably not going to kill us. Which I suppose is a plus. Because it's an adder. Anyway, one of the other native reptiles we get is this, the slow worm, which is neither slow nor a worm. I tried to take a video of one, but they're too quick. The slow worm isn't a snake either. It might look like one, but it's actually a legless lizard. The way you can tell it's not a snake is by looking at its eye. So snakes can't blink because they don't have eyelids. However, lizards can. So a slow worm can blink at you. The last of our native reptiles is this little guy. Kind of cute. The common lizard, which is a pretty boring name, however it's a really interesting creature. Common lizards have the ability to shed their tail if they get scared. This allows their tail to fall off and flop about if they get scared by a predator, and the predator eats the tail and the lizard gets away. Now don't worry about the lizard because it can regrow a tail. Amazing! And it can do it all again. Now, on top of the native species we've also got some non-native reptiles as well. And I know this for a fact because I accidentally ran over one with my bicycle, which I feel bad about. Yes, so we also get grass snakes in Scotland. However, they're not believed to be native. They've snuck up from down south or been let out of people's houses who were keeping them as pets. Now, the way you can tell a grass snake apart from an adder is to do with the eyes. Adders are vipers, and they have slit eyes, like a cat, whereas grass snakes have a round pupil. Very cool. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about reptiles and amphibians today, and also learned that they're actually not that closely related. Remember, you're more closely related to a snake than a snake is to an amphibian. If you want to learn more about amphibians or reptiles or any other creature, please follow us, like us, subscribe. I've been Calum. I'll see you later. Bye.